Next, I'll show you how to set up the dovetail kit for the REVO. The REVO comes standard with the vertical vise as shown here. It has the 2 cams on the right-hand side. For the dovetail kit, we'll need an additional 2 cams for the left-hand side. When you assemble these 2 cam vices, you want the cam going off to the left side of the clamp. So you'll start with the cap screw and the washers, and then put on the spacer, followed by the cam. Again, the cam needs to be on the left-hand side like this. Then we'll put on the clamp, followed by the backer, and finally the locking plate. We'll need to place these 2 cam vices on the left-hand side, so we'll go ahead and remove these pieces first. Then you can just slide these on the ends of the extrusion. Once you have those 2 vices on, then we'll put the centerpiece back in. Okay. Now we'll just position them here in the center to begin with. We won't tighten these down until we get the alignment set up with the template on the back. The template support bracket needs to be mounted on the inside of the back rail. Just position it approximately in the center of the bed. You'll mount the templates here on the back side. There are 3 different types of templates. The center one with the hole is for alignment purposes. The templates with the slots here are for cutting the dovetail slot. And of course this template will cut the tapered pins. We'll use the centering tool in the router to make the alignment. And of course we've got our stylus that is going to drop into the block here, and we're going to position it right in that alignment hole on the template. Now you can simply slide this center post back and forth until the alignment tool will go right down inside that hole, and at this point you can go ahead and lock the top, tighten the top screw. Now if you need to make an adjustment with the router back and forward for the alignment, you'll loosen these screws on the template follower plate and make that adjustment, and then when it's positioned correctly you can go ahead and tighten these down, all 4 of them. I'm going to take that stylus out now and move this aside. Obviously this piece needs to be square to the machine, so before we tighten this bottom screw, we're just going to put the square up against it right here, and if we need to make an adjustment, get the proper wrench, now we'll go ahead and tighten that up right there. You want to set the bed here in the front high enough that you can reach it with the router, of course, but if you set it too high, then you're going to run the router bit into the bed. So it needs to be a little bit higher than the thickness of the stock you're going to work on. So you can see here I have about 1/8 of an inch above the board. That's the space that we'll want. So I've got this set. I'm going to take my sliding T-square and just drop the blade down onto the top of that bracket. Now we know that adjustment, we can double check and make sure it's the same at this end, and if it's not, we of course can adjust this up and down, and you make sure you measure right off that bracket. Next we'll adjust these cams to clamp the stock in place. You want to open that clamp up about halfway, push the back forward and tighten it down, and then you can clamp that solid. And of course we'll need to adjust this side as well. The height of this stock, of course, has to be high enough that we can cut on it, but low enough to clear the carriage. So what I like to do is just bring the carriage over the top and slide the stock up until it just clears it. So we've got just enough clearance here for the carriage. We'll come over this piece and do exactly the same. We'll begin by cutting the dovetail slots on this piece on the left. So I'm using the 70-degree, 3/4 inch wide dovetail bit. Now we'll set the plunge depth for this router. We'll slide the carriage over the top of the stock and plunge the bit down till it touches the surface of the wood. Now the plunge depth needs to be the same as the thickness of this board right here. So I'm actually going to use this board as my spacer. I'm going to place that between the stop and the plunge bar and lock that in place. Now with the plunge depth will be exactly the same as the width of this board. Now we'll take the 1/2 inch stylus and drop that into the block and lock it in place. The stylus is going to follow the template here as we cut the slot. So I'm going to line the pin up like so, and then of course plunge down the full depth. You'll need to make the dovetail slot in one pass. Well, that completes the dovetail slots. Next we'll need to cut the dovetail pins on this other side. To cut the dovetail pins, we'll use a 1/2 inch diameter 2-flute straight cutter. To set the proper plunge depth, you just plunge the router bit down until it touches the surface of the wood. Then we'll just take this piece and use it as a spacer for the plunge bar. And we're going to cut the 2 dovetail pins on this end. We'll start off by following the template and cutting right between the 2 pins here. And we'll make this cut at the full plunge depth. Now we're going to cut on either side of the pin on the outside of the template. I want to show you how to do this by climbing on the edge. So the direction that you cut, forward or backwards, becomes very important. When you're cutting on the right-hand side here, you want to start from the back and mill forward. That way you'll be climbing on this shoulder right here and getting a clean cut. When you're cutting on the left-hand side, you want to cut from the front to the back. That will climb this shoulder and give you a clean cut on this side as well. Now we've roughed out the 2 pins here. The final cut we'll make by putting the stylus right on the front of the template here and then just running off the right-hand side and then off the left-hand side. And we'll do the same thing here. We'll put the stylus right on the front and mill off the right side and then off the left side to do the final cuts to clean up the dovetail pins. Now that completes the pins. You can go ahead and do a test fit. And that should give you a nice, clean, tight fit.